What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about the Souls-like game that I would consider probably one of the best attempts at replicating it from an outside studio. Obviously, you know, there's games like Neo that exist, and there's games like Hollow Knight that exist, and they all have this variation of the Souls-like genre, whether it's Neo that's saying like in a fantasy type world with like a yokai demons and such like that, and Hollow Knight, which is a 2D kind of version of Souls. This game is very, very close to what a Souls game feels like in terms of gameplay and tone and environment and stuff like that. And to me, personally, it's probably the closest to a Souls game that an outside studio that isn't From Software have gotten to making one. And what we're going to do today is talk about the game, the gameplay, the bosses, and progression and stuff like that, and just kind of give my overall thoughts on the game. If you are like me and like the game a lot, do leave your thoughts on what you feel about the game down in the comments below. I do love seeing comments about people's opinions on the games I make videos about and talk about, and this is no different, so be sure to leave your thoughts down below. If you're interested in more Souls-like content as well as the Resident Evil and horror stuff that I primarily make, be sure to subscribe and turn notifications so you do not miss a video. I upload every single day and I stream every weekend, so there's always something going on the channel. Without any further ado, let's get into why I think Mortal Shell is such a good Souls-like game. First things first, let's talk about the actual difference, what this brings to the table in terms of a Souls-like. All of these games have this kind of unique thing they bring in, and this is not kind of a thing that's not done in any From Software game. You know, look at Bloodborne, it's more of an aggressive type of game. Look at Sekiro, it's all about timing your blocks and deflects and stuff like that. And then obviously Souls itself, which is, you know, the common ground for how these games usually work. But with this game, there's something quite unique to it, which we'll get to now. So the playable character is essentially a husk of a person. They are not really that strong. If you are playing outside of your shell, which we'll get to in a moment about what that is, you are one hit. You will die in one hit. You are not safe. What the player character does is you find these fallen soldiers throughout the world and kind of take control of their body, and doing so, I think there's 4 right now. At the time this video goes up, there is a DLC out which adds another, so 5 I guess you could say. But what these characters do is have different attributes and traits. There's the normal knight guy, there's a agile one which obviously has more stamina across anything else, there's one that has more health, and then there's one that's like I believe an all-rounder in a way, like it's just kind of the best at everything. Me personally, I played the guy with the most stamina. Later on in the game, the voice you're saying in the background is pretty early on in the game, without spoiling as much as possible. So, you know, there's plenty of options, depends on your playstyle obviously, as well as the weapons. I believe there's four or 5 weapons: a normal sword, a big heavy 2-handed weapon, an agile dual weapon, a long-range gun, which is not really a weapon you can use, but still a tool, and a huge sword that freezes things on touch, which is pretty cool too. They're all quite unique. But yeah, you pick one of these shells that you want to play as, and throughout the game, defeating enemies, bosses, and using the consumable gives you tar, which is your kind of souls currency in this game. Again, used to upgrade your character. Each character has a kind of unique skill tree that complements their playstyle. Again, for example, using the one I played the most through the game, the agile one, there's an ability that doesn't let him run out of stamina when he's sprinting. There's one that gives you a 20% chance of a hit reducing your stamina rather than your health. So there's plenty of ways to build upon the character in their respective playstyle, which is super cool. On top of the picking of your shell and which character you want to play, there is also an ability built in called Harden. What it essentially does is cover your shell in like this really hard material, and it can protect you from a hit, one singular hit, and it has a small cooldown, so obviously you can't spam it. What's really cool about this as well is you can kind of swing your weapon, and halfway through the animation you can kind of harden to kind of dodge the enemy's attack if you're mid-animation, and then when you unharden, the animation will carry on and you'll hit them. It can be used really, really well if you time it right, especially against bosses and harder enemies around the environments. So yeah, it's definitely a unique take on a way to kind of stay in the fight, which I really liked about the game. So now we'll talk about the actual difficulty of the game. Obviously, if you're a Souls player like me who have played many variations of the games, you'll know that they're built around being difficult. Now, as I mentioned in the Bloodborne video, this is not the hardest game I've played in the genre, and again, I'm leaving that to you to figure out before the video releases next week about what game you really think, for me, is the hardest one to play. But it is up there as a quite difficult game. You have to kind of be aware that you can't play this game like a Dark Souls game, and you can't play it like Bloodborne either. You have to play it in a quite unique way. Personally, how I would describe how you have to play the game is you have to be kind of on the ball, not only with what you're doing and where you are, but what the enemies are going to do and what they are, or what their pattern is, how you are meant to deal with a certain pattern of attacks, when to time your harden so you don't mess it up, because obviously there is some enemy attacks where they'll swing and then swing again immediately, and yes, you are protected for one hit, but as soon as you come out of the harden, you're just going to get hit by the next 2 or 3 in that chain. So you have to know when to dodge, when to harden. Obviously the dodge is kind of like Dark Souls, where if you time it right, you are completely immune to damage, so you are safe. And me personally, playing the agile character, had more stamina than anyone else, so I was kind of focusing on dodging rather than hardening all the time. But either way, hardening can save your life if you are playing the agile character, because sometimes you'll just dodge into something else and you'll be like, oh god, and it'll be like a quick reaction to harden so you don't get hit. So it is a very situational mechanic to use, but it does pay off if you time it right. And there is some consumables in the game, well, quite a lot actually, that do kind of benefit from you hardening. There's some that upon being hit while you're hardened, you'll receive health, you'll receive a damage reduction, you'll do more damage on your next hit. There's plenty of options out there for items that kind of encourage you to harden as much as possible, so they clearly want you to learn how this mechanic works. Before anyone asks, I would talk about story, but even I didn't fully understand what was going on. It is explained in a way, but I guess it's kind of like down to you to figure out, and I was just lost the whole time. For me, I was just trying to play it. I was obviously listening to dialogue and stuff like that, but I didn't really get what was going on much. But I'm sure someone in the comments, again, can explain what the story was and what was actually happening. But I'm sure if you look hard enough, you'll figure out what's going on a bit more easily than I did. I have a kind of vague idea of what was happening. General Souls activity. But, you know, it's usually the case of, oh no, this has happened, go kill these things to fix this thing, and then end of game, final boss. Some kind of plot twist, which is definitely what happens in this game. But, yeah, the story's quite good. From what I could tell, it was quite good, it was quite well done. So now we'll move on to the meat of a Souls game. For anyone who's played a Souls game, you'll know the most engaging part is the boss fights. The boss fights in this game are no different, they're very well done. You can kind of beat them all in the same way, but I guess that's the same with any Souls game. If you find a way to beat them, you'll beat them in that way repeatedly, if it works. But nevertheless, the bosses are quite unique in terms of where they are and what they do, and they're a lot of fun. The gameplay I have in the background is the first kind of main boss in the game. It's like a fire guy. I think there's one that's like an ice guy later on, and there's one that's like a dual boss where it has different attacks. It's like ranged and melee at once, which is pretty cool. But this guy, first boss in the game, so nothing majorly spoiled there. As you can probably tell from the transition if you've played the game, I had already dealt with it at this point, but this is just me beating the boss. Again, I would say that the bosses weren't necessarily that hard, but it did take me a few attempts to kind of figure out all of its attack patterns and what it actually did. From finishing the game, I can tell you that each main boss of the game does have a second phase, except the final boss, but he's quite tanky compared to the rest, so it takes just around the same amount of time as it would to take down a kind of non-final boss. But yeah, it took me a couple of attempts, obviously, to figure out when to time the harden on these fights, when to dodge, and of course, you know, the attack patterns of these bosses in general. It did take me by surprise that every single main boss in the game did have a second phase, but honestly, that's fine. I quite like that. It requires you to pay attention a bit more than just one life bar. So yeah, I would say the boss fights in this game are pretty damn good. They're all quite unique. My favourite is probably not this one, but I didn't have the footage of the one I wanted to save, and it was the ice one, which is near the end. I won't say no more. If you played the game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But my personal favourite boss in the game was the frost guy. I don't remember the name of, but yeah, they're all quite unique. They all play in different ways, and they're a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun to fight. But overall, with Mortal Shell, I would say definitely play the game if you have the opportunity to. It is on last gen and current gen, so PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Series X, as well as PC, I believe. It's not on Switch, I don't think. And some DLC did come out at the time of recording this. It would be today or maybe tomorrow. But there is DLC coming out soon that adds like a roguelike mode to the game, as well as a new weapon and a new shell, which would be pretty cool. So I'll definitely be checking that out. If anyone does check out the DLC before me, do let me know what you think of it. Or either way, just give me your thoughts on the DLC in general. But yeah, definitely play Mortal Shell if you get the opportunity. It's not a full price game either, so it's not going to throw you out of pocket. And honestly, the experience you'll get and the hours you'll get out of it, it's definitely worth the price. So I would definitely say go and play the game. One more thing I would like to add, and this is an achievement / a challenge you can activate in the game, where you can attempt to beat the game without a shell, so you're essentially constantly 1 HP. If anyone has beat this mode, do let me know, and do let me know how difficult it is, because I would like to try it at some point, but I'm too scared to try and attempt it. I feel like I died too many times at the beginning of the game, in some stupid ass way, to even try and attempt it yet. And I've only completed the game once, so I'm not exactly a master at it yet. But do let me know if anyone's played that, and if it's worth doing, because I'd actually be very interested in doing that. But yeah, thank you for watching. Remember to leave a like on the video and subscribe for more Resident Evil horror and Souls-like content. And I'll see you all tomorrow for a brand new video.